at the Ottawa River Musky Factory.
Good evening and welcome everyone to the Suick Seminar Series episode number 4. Tonight's special guest from Wisconsin, hot musky guide Taylor Flannery from the Musky Guarantee Guide Service. My name is John Anderson. I'm from the Ottawa River Musky Factory, and I'm one of your 3 hosts tonight, along with the usual suspects, Noah Oliveira Hill, who interestingly caught his first fish of the softwater season for 2026, fishing off his balcony on his front lawn with a piece of turkey bacon. That's a musky guide, and that's because we're all up in we're in the flood world up here right now. Say hi, Noah. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks, John.
Awesome, nice catch, turkey bacon.
Yeah, only about a 2.5 pound catfish, but I mean, I'll take what I can get. I need a fish.
Anything on the end of the line. That's a good start. A 2.5 pounder. Well done. Our other host, usual host, Brent Bocek from Fishing NV and the Ottawa River Musky Factory. We have to throw a special shout out to Brent tonight. He's just coming back from the Muskies Canada National Convention National Meeting, where he was awarded the Jim Herod Memorial Award for his outstanding contribution over a lifetime to education and community outreach. Brent's given over 200 presentations in service of Muskies Canada and to all kinds of different organizations to teach people about taking care of the resource, taking care of fish. And so, Brent, congratulations, my friend. Happy to be able to give you a shout out on this program. That's very special, and that's from received for a lifetime of work. So good on you. You look so much younger in that picture, holding a trophy and with a big smile.
I appreciate it, John. Thank you very much. I kind of think that award is. I kind of share it with my wife Heather because, as you know, and a lot of people know, I can't do what I do without her support, encouragement, and guidance. So it was very honored to receive that award, and we're just going to keep doing what we do, right?
Yeah, agreed. Well done, my friend. I'll concur. You are not much without Heather at all. So yes. Kudos to you, Heather, for propping them up all this time. I want to mention before we give Taylor a proper introduction and bring him out that tonight we are looking to have a little bit of a more interactive program. We've had a lineup of questions the last couple programs. We have a bevy of videos and pictures to go through this evening. So if you got questions on videos, pictures, or anything that we're talking about, please send them along. Noah can go through them. He'll put good ones up on or pertinent ones up on the screen. If we don't get your question tonight, we promise we'll get back to you shortly. We do answer all the questions that come into us. And so a little bit about our guest for tonight, Taylor Flannery. He's the hot young guide from Wisconsin who owns the Guarantee Musky Guide Service. Wait, who chose this guy? It's going to make us all, which one of you two? It's going to make us all look bad. There's no guarantees in musky fishing. It's the fish of 10,000 casts. So I'm sure it's going to work out for us, but we're going to ask Taylor about that and the guarantee and how well that's worked out for him. Taylor's been fishing since he could walk in Wisconsin. He's been guiding full-time for 5 years. April's multi-species month, and go to Iowa and catch muskies month. And so we're going to talk to him about his recent trip. I think he was just back yesterday from that. He grew up on Pelican Lake, and he fishes mainly out of Oneida, Vilas, Langlade, and Forest counties. That gives him 65 lakes to choose from. So knowing which lake to go to and when, how do you choose the right water? That's going to be one of our topics tonight. Some of the other topics that we're going to cover tonight include comparing the stocked lakes of southern Wisconsin. We had a really terrific guest on our last show, Jeff Hansen. And interestingly, he's a few hours away from Taylor and he's fishing a chain of lakes that's all stocked with 5 different strains of muskies. A little bit further north, Taylor's fishing all natural fisheries, 65 different ones. And wait till you see the different looks on the fish because of the different types of water that we have. So we're going to explore that. We're going to talk about color patterns and strains, choosing the right lake, as I mentioned. We're going to talk about mapping and how success with using your maps, success is in the details. And Taylor is somebody who's really a detailed guy. He's got some terrific slides for it here to show you what you get out of the box with your mapping chips and what you learn when you actually go high resolution and make your own map. So it can mean the difference between pictures and no pictures. So we all want to take pictures. And the other thing, we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. Again, a more interactive program. Send your questions in. Fresh from Iowa, let's bring him out. Taylor Flannery. Looking good. You're the first guest we've ever had on with cool shades. I got to say that. But that's because you had to drive to get internet service tonight, right?
Yeah, I don't really get too much for Wi-Fi or anything like that at my place, so I got to drive a couple miles down the road to be able to talk to you guys without any technical difficulties or interruptions. So I got the sun right in my face right now, so you're gonna have the glasses until it gets a little darker.
Oh, if you don't have good internet service, that's how you tell you're in the right Musky neighborhood.
Yeah, it's great. It's great over here. I like being shut out from the world.
All right, Musky Guaranteed Guide Service. I gotta say, you're making us look bad already. We don't give guarantees. Fish at 10,000 gaps. What do you do?
Yeah, well, you know, it's always a guaranteed good time in the boat with me. I can say that, but just the kind of the backstory behind that, you know, the Musky Guaranteed Guide Service name. I wanted to stick out, I guess, and I wanted to show people that I was going to work hard for them. Nothing is guaranteed in musky fishing. Let's get that straight. But I am going to do everything I can to get people on fish, whether that's driving an hour and a half, 2 hours to hit a certain body of water, or drive three counties across to be able to put them on a fish. And I mean, there's been days where we've fished all 3 counties around here and caught fish in each county. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get people on fish and give them the best experience I can. And I will say that I think musky guiding as a whole is one thing where if you're out there with people, you could take them out to the middle of the lake and say, hey, cast this musky rod and make sure you figure 8 every time. And well, sorry, you didn't see one. That's your trip. You know, I mean, you could very easily do that and just say, well, that's how musky fishing is. I refuse to do that. To me, every day is a tournament day, and I want to get people on fish every single day. That was just my way of showing people that I was going to work hard for them. And when I first started this thing, I didn't think it was going to be a full-time gig. I did it to try something new that I thought that I was good at, that I was told I was good at. And I think I told you guys this when we had talked previously, but I had an older guy that I always fished with, and he ended up we worked at the paper mill in Rhinelander together at the time, and he ended up passing away through like the whole COVID time frame. And he had all these things that he wanted to do in his life, and he wanted to go fishing, he wanted to travel, he wanted to do these things, and he ended up not being able to do all those things. You know, he passed away before retirement, and he was always one that told me, hey, you're really good at this, you should try doing it for a living. And I said, honestly, I enjoy fun fishing. I enjoy having a good time. And I don't really want to do that. But when he passed away, that kind of opened my eyes to, there are better things in life to worry about versus just a paycheck. And I went for it, and I figured if I wanted to do it, I was going to go all in. And there's no better way to get people in your boat than guaranteeing a fishing net. And that's what I did. And the first season that I did that, I ran 48 trips, and we caught fish on 44 of those 48 trips. So very, very high success rate. Yeah, it was stressful at times on the high sky days, and people that were inexperienced fishermen and whatnot. I mean, we took our lumps, but for the most part, there's always an opportunity to catch if you know what you're doing.
That's fantastic, and I gotta say, I'm a pretty well-traveled musky guy. There are not too many of us anywhere who can say that we catch fish 44 out of 48 days. So that's a tremendous success rate. Speaks really well for you and your fishery. Fantastic. You just came back from Iowa. You get back yesterday?
Yeah, we got back in around dinner time last night. We actually fished like a half day in the morning. Well, let's say 3-4 hours in the morning, Sunday, and then drove back up north afterwards. And today was a day of rest. We there was 3 of us down there for the weekend or whatnot, and we were all pretty tired out. That's jumping right into 13-14 hour days and on the water and in the sun. That's not it's not easing yourself back into the musky grind, that's for sure.
Yeah, a musky fishing vacation is the only vacation that you need a vacation when you're done your musky fishing vacation, because you get beat up doing exactly what you said. You let a musky guy loose, a young guy on a vacation, 13 or 14 hours every day for the whole trip, because you got to get yours. So how long was your trip? How did you do?
Yeah, we left our drive days were Sundays. So we left on Sunday last week, came back on Sunday this week. And we ended up, we boated 21 fish and we lost, I believe, 9 fish that we had hooks into. It was a mix of casting, trolling, jigging, doing anything that we possibly could to get a bite. And we found a good pattern and kind of got on them later in the week. We had a pretty nasty cold front. It went from like mid 70s down there to the one morning was like 24-degree start time. So yeah, we had some cold fronts coming in, and we were coming after a big weather front had moved through, which I know we had some other people down there fishing that we knew of, and they did really well on that weather pattern that came in just before we had got there. So it was a struggle. It was musky fishing, but we figured it out and got some fish in the net.
Yeah, 30 fish on in a week. That doesn't sound like much of a struggle.
21 fish in the boat is not a struggle. I don't know. That's not a struggle. Not a struggle up here. So this is the first time that we've ever talked about the Iowa fishery. If there's any people out there from Iowa who are listening who want to give us a shout out or a comment, that would be pretty cool. Did a little bit of, first time we've ever talked about it on this program that I know of. Did a little bit of research. I started guiding people from Iowa when I was up in Menaki in the 70s, and so and I didn't realize that they got that musky bug back at home. The Iowa fishery is a built fishery, completely built. Stocking started in 1960 with 2 lakes. They're up to 14 or 15 lakes right now, 2 different hatcheries in there. I understand that although they had the Spirit Lake hatchery initially, Taylor was saying that they were happy to just take muskies from anywhere they could get them over the years. So they really had a mixed bag of muskies in their fishery, which pretty interesting. What I read online said there's no natural reproduction in Iowa due to habitat limitations. There's high levels of silt in a lot of the lakes, and because of the very fast transition from cold water through the spawning season into warm water, it often gets too warm for muskies to survive. But Taylor, you were saying that there is some natural reproduction happening in Iowa now.
Yeah, and that's just me talking with friends and guides that actually fish down there all the time. One of them being Matt Vavrock. He has a YouTube channel. He lives right down there. He's actually the guy that we stay with. I know his dad was involved in the conservation stuff for like 30 plus years in Iowa. That's kind of what he lives by. Really into all that. And then another one would be like Ryan Becker from Iowa Muskie Guide Service. Just that's the things that they have said is there are certain bodies of water like the Iowa Great Lakes, Spirit, Okoboji, those things that have natural reproduction occurring in them, and they actually have a closed season on them due to that. And then also where Ryan is from in Clear Lake over there, he said that there is signs of natural reproduction occurring, but not a significant amount where it is still a stocked fishery, but they are getting a few bonus fish over there. So that's good to see. Anything extra is what we want.
That's fantastic. That's another good news story. There's a number of states where the waters didn't support natural reproduction, and then through time, through improving water quality, through improving habitat, there is the makings of natural reproduction. I know I hear that story in Pennsylvania and in Ohio specifically these days. In the Ohio River in Pennsylvania, that's gone from something which was thought to have very little or almost zero natural reproduction to quite a bit, and some pretty good sections going on right now. So those are really good stories to hear in the muskie world.
Can they? How can they tell? Are they able to tell when they catch a fish if it's a stock fish or natural reproduction?
That I'm not sure. I'm not sure that they're doing much for like pit tagging and things like that, like we're doing here now. I don't really know the whole background story, so I don't really want to speak on that, being I'll probably be wrong.
Okay, fair enough. We had a really interesting talk last time with Jim Flannery about the different strains of muskie and the stocking programs.
Jim Hansen.
I'm sorry.
With Jim Hansen.
With Jim Hansen in Wisconsin, and what he said is the muskies all have different looks, and so he knew right away, often in the water when he hooked a fish, what strain it was, so he can identify his fish. Now you sent us some really nice pictures, a nice collection. If you want to start putting them up, Noah, and I looked at these and thought, wow, there's got to be some different strains in these, because the color patterns, the thickness of the fish, the belly line, where the white belly meets the side of the fish, is substantially different on all of these. So I was asking, that's a real pretty fish. That to me, that looks like a Northern Ontario fish. Mm-hmm. The woods fish. Again, that's a good sized fish. Little different color pattern on it, for sure.
So something that's interesting is actually that fish that's pictured right here is out of the same body of water as the one with the really white hard line to the belly.
This one?
Yeah.
Wow. So you have different looking fish, even though they're the same strain, they can look that different within the same lake. So can you speak on that for a second? Any ideas?
Well, honestly, I think some of that has to do with water clarity. Obviously, this is different because it is the same body of water, but that could be very well a fish that's been in the weeds for a long period of time versus a fish that, was out in open water chasing around crappies out there and then just sucked up, into that weed line or whatever, where we caught it, right at that point. I think they do kind of change, throughout the time of the year too, and water temps. They get a little bit, like, I want to say lighter colored with the cooler water temps. And then this is just a hefty fish. This is an October fish, but that one's got like that natural, the old time Wisconsin strain where like this is a lake that's not really stocked or whatever. It's just a natural reproduction, and that's just the nice genetics that we have here. Whereas like Pelican Lake, I'll use that one all the time because it's my home water. I mean, that's kind of where the Suick was brought up, which is kind of neat. But that one is actually getting like Wisconsin River strain fish now, which develop more like a greenish back with like a little bit of, the striping and barring on like the tail, where there'd be a clear muskie versus like our clear water fish are like a barred muskie, where they, the entirety of the fish's body has that, almost striping, not so much tiger-ish, but just being a barred muskie and really pronounced markings.
That's interesting that you get different colorations like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, really interesting collection of pictures. If you think of smallmouth bass going into your live well, If you're fishing a tournament after they've been in there for a little while, and people will leave them in there in an oxygenated situation to get a better picture. That color pattern on the side of a bass and on the side of a muskie is there. It's permanent. It's like a fingerprint. It's always there. But depending on whether it comes out of deep water, out of muddy water, it's going to have a different amount of intensity and a different sheen off of it. So absolutely, you can get that different look. The pictures are a testament to getting different looks from the same body of water. Different looks, different times of year. Were those fish different times of year?
Yeah, there was the more greenish colored fish on the same body of water. That one was in September, and then the other one was like the end of October, the really white hard line. And then the big fat one there that was like kind of leopard spotty, that one was the end of October. And then the really dark greeny, which that's your Wisconsin greenies, but that one was caught like July 4th weekend or something like that. So yeah, that's all over the map.
And that explains the difference in the girth of the fish then too, being the thinnest fish early in the summer, and then the thicker ones putting on weight as they go through the fall. One of the interesting features of where we are on the Ottawa River is we have all the color patterns of muskies, striped, spotted, clear, and tiger as well. And then we have shovel heads, which have a really short beak and a very fat body. We have gator heads, which have like the big ones are 15 or 16 inches from the snout to the back of the gill plate. And so all of those looks from basically the same strain of fish at this point. They can't really detect any of the genetics from stocking that was done in yesteryear. But with those different shapes and patterns, we have families of muskies. We have a group that we call leopards, and we have our own spotties. And the thought is that those groups carry their consistency of color patterns because they're a family. They travel together, they live together, they spawn together. They would all be deep water fish, or they would all be shallow water fish. We have families that live deep. We have families that live shallow, but they would live the same life pattern, and they would go to spawn in the same place every year and spawn with their family, maintaining those color patterns. So that's how we view the different colors and the patterns that we have in our system here on the Ottawa. You have all that variety with just one strain. So very cool stuff. Let's move on to some video. We got a whole bunch of videos for tonight from Taylor. So let's pull up the first one. What do we have?
We'll see. We got quite a few.
Yeah, so this I was fishing like a main lake kind of hump area with some weeds on top, and then like a 13-14 foot break. And I'm not sure if it's in this part of the video or not, but I actually had this fish come in and go around in the figure eight probably 5-6 times and actually eat mid Medusa. And I set the hook and it ripped all three tails off the Medusa. So I was like figure eight and just a little, jig basically. And something that I've found is actually when you have a fish that's that hot and has not tasted hooks, upsizing actually will get that fish to go again. And that's exactly what this did, where I actually grabbed a husky Medusa and started throwing back to where I thought she was at. And then actually the boat, as it kind of turned, I saw her on side imaging out the back of the boat. So as you see, I reeled in the cast quick, pitched the cast back to her, and started pulling her in, and she just clobbered that husky Medusa. So that was a pretty cool catch there.
Yeah, two guide. I mean, we're 4 guides here, so we watched the video and we knew right away that you had seen that fish on side imaging, like all of us, and turn reel in fast instantly and see it react. Like, don't wait, get the cat, get the cast on it right away. And then we blew up your video down to your screen, and you can actually, the fish is just crystal clear on that too. So shows you exactly what you're looking for, and you hit the fish in the head. I mean, you can see the direction that the fish is sitting. I think you can see where that fish is on that side imaging, that fish is up off the bottom as well. Do you recall that?
Yeah, absolutely. And just for people that aren't really familiar, the further off the white mark, the white return is the fish itself, and you'll see the shadow first. But the further that shadow is from the white return of the actual fish, tells you that fish is higher up in the water column, or vice versa. If it's right on the bottom, you'll see the white return and then the shadow right behind it. But this one was suspended. It had just come off of trying to eat a mid medusa, and was just hanging out there off the.
And so what are you, when you see fish on the bottom versus up off the bottom versus high in the column, does that mean, what does that tell you? What does that mean to you?
Generally, that's going to tell you, if you have a fish on bottom, it's going to tell you that that's probably a more so inactive or neutral fish. Whereas if you have a fish up suspended, it's probably a fish that's active, that is ready to chow something. That's not always true, but I do, think that that's kind of a thing. And then also, as far as like when you're on one lake, and you can do it the same way with bait fish. You're on one lake, and you see that the bait fish are all just hugging bottom and not up in the water column at all, and you're on a moon window, you're on a weather change, whatever it may be, where you should find active fish. If those bait fish are down in the water column, you might as well get out of there and go find a new system. Generally, that's telling you that those fish are inactive. You can always wait it out and try to, hope and pray for a bite, but odds are you're going to be there for a while, and it's going to really be like musky fishing should be. So jumping off of that water and, using what you're seeing on the water to make that decision is a big thing that we do around here, having so many different bodies of water to fish.
So muskies on the bottom is negative or neutral fish. Your bait fish on the bottom is also telling you it's a negative or neutral situation in a best case. That's what you're saying, right?
Yep, correct.
So, sorry, John, 1 sec there, guy. So when you first contacted that fish, you're casting to the left side of the boat?
To the structure, yep.
To the structure. And that fish, after he hit your bait and came off there, you didn't hook him. He traveled all the way up to the other side of the boat. He didn't stay where you contacted him.
Correct. Yeah, she went out off into the deep water and
Yep.
was kind of pouting out there. That's what I always say.
Right. Trying to figure out what just happened.
Yeah, yep. And generally, I'll tell you that most of them do that. Like, that's why they say, you come back, 2 hours later and they'll reset up on their spot kind of thing. But some don't. I think some, if you bring them up off their spot, they're just gone. I've found multiple times where you do go back and they're right on the waypoint, same cast, same everything. But there are also times where it just seems like that fish is nowhere to be seen. So I think that has to do with the pressure that body of water might have too. So something to think about.
Gord Pizer did an interesting study on Lake of the Woods where they tracked fish that chase baits into boats, and most of the time, if they came off of a spot, they worked their way back to that spot within 5 minutes and settled back into it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my technique now. Is when I get a follow, if I can't get a fish to go, or I do have a bite or something, I'll give a cast back at where that fish was or where I saw it go one or two times, and then I'll actually back off the spot completely, give it 5-10 minutes, and refish it the exact same way I did, rather than hound that fish, because then sometimes that'll just push them right off, I find. And I've had a lot more success now doing that with catching fish that have followed in that didn't go originally than I did before with just hounding a fish. And I found the percentage of getting that fish to go after it followed you in by hounding it, on the 5th cast, it follows in again. I wasn't getting the bites like I am now by fully backing off that spot and then redoing it.
Right. And I do agree with that. I will also add that if it is like a super fired up fish, upsizing in the same lure tends to be the ticket to getting that fish to go. And I will also, when I go back to run that same fish, I will go inside out on that piece of structure and fish from shallow, casting out and getting a different casting angle at that fish. And a lot of times that's a recipe for success.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good
I
stuff.
also, sorry, before we move on, Taylor, when I was watching that video, I realized, I mean, I may be able to see a bit better than the viewers watching, but specifically that fish on your side imaging, there's a really, really clear picture of it. How do you adjust your side imaging settings depending on how you're fishing? So depending how fast your boat's moving, whether you're casting, trolling, jigging, do you play around with your settings at all?
Yeah, I will say that generally, like your chart speed is the one that you would be adjusting as far as that goes. Once you have your clarity dialed in with, you know, that sort of thing. But your chart speed is the one where if you're you know, just breaking down a water or trolling or moving along quickly, we'll say 3 to 5 miles an hour. You want to up your chart speed. That way you're in more recent time and you can see a more clear image. Whereas if you're stationary, like walleye fishing per se, and you just got your trolling motor and spot lock, if your chart speed, you'd bring it down to a 1, then you will actually be able to get a better return of what's actually occurring down there. Otherwise you get like the long, just drawn out lines, because it's reading so quickly that it's not really coming up as a clear image in that aspect. So that's yeah, exactly.
Great answer on that. Yeah, rule of thumb for me, when at least what works for me is I find if my boat's moving at 2 miles an hour, my chart speed's at 2 or 3 miles an hour. It's never more than just 1 mile or, you know, 1 tick more than what the boat's moving. So that's usually what I try to go by. So if I'm trolling 4 or 5 miles an hour, it's at usually 5 or 6. And then if I'm casting and moving 1 mile an hour, it's at 1 or 2. So it's very similar to what I do as well. So cool.
I have 65-year-old eyes, and so my key to getting a great image on the screen is to have a screen that's about this big. I used to have ones that were this big, but I've upped it 3 or 4 times, and I think we're at the right level now. Speaking for Brent, it works the same, right?
You can always wear glasses, John.
Trifocals, Brent. Trifocals. Just contacts because I'm on TV. You know. All right.
Wait, before we move on, we have some questions.
Okay, that's right. Interactive.
Yes. So this is a great question. I was reading it. Dean says, do you think muskies move to different lake areas after they are caught and released, or do they tend to still stick around in the same areas as before? Who wants to answer? I have an opinion on it, but go ahead.
I think they have their home range. You know, they don't necessarily feed off one spot all the time, but they have their home range. And I think they're going to stick to that home range unless they get super pressured and something puts them off.
Yep. I was going to say, I think it also depends how much stress you put on your fish. If you're handling it more than you should be and you stress your fish out a lot, you start getting some hemorrhaging on the sides of the fish. You start seeing bleeding out of its tail. There's probably a higher chance that fish might not come back to its range, but typically they'll still be in the same spot. However, I did catch a fish, not last year, but the year before. The first time I caught her was in one spot, and then I caught her again 2 kilometers from where I first caught it in a complete different weed bed. So that fish did move. However, I caught it early in the season the first time and then midsummer the second time. So she could have went from her spawning beds out to her summer range, but that's at least my opinion. But muskies are notoriously, annual cycle fish. They return to the exact same locations year after year. So yeah.
I'm gonna say that I believe that muskies are individuals just like you and I would be, and they have their own things that they will do. Like I'm working with Oneida County and Vilas County DNR hit tagging muskies. So I mean, you have for sure it's that fish. It's got a tag in it. But we had 4 recaptures last year, hook and line, of the same fish. And each one of those fish, there were 3 of them were caught on the exact same piece of structure, whether it was in June to August or July to September or whatever it may be. One was actually caught within about 10 yards of where it was caught the first time but each one was caught on a different presentation, which was kind of interesting to me. Maybe it was coincidence, maybe it was not. But there's also been studies done actually on the spider chain in the Hayward area. The DNR is using transmitters to actually track fish. And there was one that was hanging out in a weed bed for the entirety of the whole summer. And it actually was caught and turned into the DNR as this is the tag number that was on the fish. And as soon as that fish was caught, it skedaddled and went right out into open water and stayed out there for the entirety of that time. So it's very interesting stuff that, I mean, some do one thing and then another will do another. So I don't know. I think that they're kind of their own individual monster, if that doesn't answer anything, but I think that's what it is.
All right. I'll go with the individuals. They don't all do the same thing for sure. Our first telemetry study on the Ottawa River in 1994 showed us that we have fish that live deep all year, 15 feet or deeper, except in the spring when they spawn. We have fish that live shallow all year. We have a third group of fish that roams in and out between the deep and the shallow. So completely different ideas of what's going on. When Dr. Sean Landsman did Project Noble Beast, a phenomenal study done here on the Ottawa River, published in Musky Hunter magazine, several other prominent magazines, as well as the science journals. There were, I want to say, 55 muskies in the study. The majority of them, after being caught, a lot of them went down to the bottom, depending on if they were fatigued or needed time to recuperate, and just sat on the bottom where they were until they had recuperated. Some a short amount of time, some as much as a day or a day and a half if it was rough on them. Just about all of them stayed within their home ranges after being caught. So they are very loyal to that home range. Even though some of them spawned 35 kilometers, 20, 25 miles away, they were caught in their home range. They remained in their home ranges. So that's the science. Not every fish is different. The longest migration ever by a fish, and not after being caught, but that fish out of Lake St. Clair that did the lap of Lake Erie once, 1,300 miles was it? And then 2 years later did the same circuit. That's not in the program. Nobody's ever done that before, and yet it is, and it's scientifically verified. So yeah, we're a flock. We're a lot alike, but you know, there's individuals who are just different than the rest for sure. What do you got for another video, Noah? What do you got for another question?
Another question. This is a question for Taylor. Do you select the waters you fish based on light levels and stained versus clear waters? Example, stained water during bright days and clear water on overcast days?
Absolutely. That is one of the parts of the recipe every single day. If you have a bright, bluebird skies, I am not going to pick the clearest, toughest body of water that we have around here. I'm going to pick dark tannic water, or the green stained actually really helps as well. And a lot of it is due to light penetration, and that green stain or the tannic water will block that light penetration, and you'll have feeding muskies and active muskies during that broad daylight over, say, a clear body of water. Your best fishing, is always, cloudy, overcast, or night fishing, those kind of waters.
Awesome.
Good answer. I like it.
All right.
It's interesting. It's interesting that within a short range of where you live, you have those options. A lot of times, like in the Kawartha Lakes, for example, for the most part, they're tea stained or green. Then like at Lake Erie, Lake Ontario here, Niagara River, it's all very clear water. So
Yeah, and honestly, it's a half an hour, and you have, you have all of the different stages. I usually break them down to like four. You have like a dark stained, which is like a tannic water that's also kind of murky and not very much visibility, and then you have a dark clear, which is the tannic water, but you can visibly see, 5-6 feet down, even though it is that tannic water. And then you also have your green stained, and then your clear or green, green clear. A lot of the time we'll get that like clear bodies of water around like the August, July, August timeframe. We'll get a algae bloom and it'll turn green, and that just fires up those lakes. So generally, I don't fish those green stained waters until that bloom occurs, and then you can really get out there, any day of the week and do well.
I'll say that we have something like that here on the Ottawa River, in that we have a lot of tannins in our water, visibility of about 5 to 6 feet at maximum on the lower Ottawa, and it's a very dynamic river with an awful lot of tributaries. And so when we get storms in the summer, we get a lot of localized thunderstorms, and so they might affect 1 or 2 tributaries in an area that will just spew brown water into the system. And if that's in your area, your section can brown out. But for example, I have my fishing business about 80 miles downriver from here. That's where I built it. And when we got a lot of rain, it would go to 0 visibility and brown water in the old days. And so I used to run up here to the upper Ottawa because I knew that I could still find 2 or 3 feet of visibility in areas. And that was really important to me in the old days. I think it's still important a lot of the times when you fish, but my attitude towards dirty water has evolved. I don't fear it like I did. I feel much more educated. I'm comfortable fishing and catching muskies in it now, just because I'm smarter, more experienced on how to deal with it. They're still there. They're still in the spots where you thought they were. They just can't react anything close to the speed that you expected them to. It's like you going out in the hall at night. You run to your fridge to get a snack in the dark? No. You're going to take your time, feel your way, make sure that everything is in place, and you're still going to get to your snack. So you just got to fish a lot slower. So same picking the right area recipe a little bit, but lakes, rivers, and dynamic situation.
Yeah, and then like we had talked about, seeing bait fish and stuff on your side scan, down imaging, that sort of thing, and determining, jumping bodies of water and moving lakes off of what you normally would be doing. You can do the same thing with the water clarities, like the 4 or 5 groups or whatever that, I just had mentioned. If you find on a day that fish are completely inactive, say on a green stained body of water, I am not going to jump from that body of water to another green stained body of water, because I'm going to find like-minded muskies and I want to be off of that. Whereas if we beat up a 400-acre lake that was green stained and we had a great, we caught 3 fish on it, but we just need some new scenery, or, a fresh start to the day to get clients or whatever, really into it. I will jump to another green stained body of water because we had success, and you're going to find happy muskies on that green stained body of water that day. So if that helps anybody out as far as lake choices, and not just, well, I know this lake and I know this lake, I'm going to go try this one, and just add just a random chance if you come across, active fish. That seems to help me a lot up in our area.
What do algae blooms mean to you, and do you avoid them?
No, I love them. I absolutely love when that water gets a little bit hazy. And to me, that signifies a rock bite. When that algae bloom happens, it seems like a lot of those fish and bait fish and everything just tend to sit off the main lake rock bars and whatnot, more so than into the weeds. And yeah, there's always, like you said, there's always open water fish, there's always weed fish, there's always, something happening, or those fish prefer a specific area. But it seems like during those algae blooms, the shallow structure, main lake structure, and rock bars and things like that really seem to fire off better than the weed bite.
Interesting. Good observation. All right. Time for video, Noah. What do you think?
I got a video.
and out, and like musky fishing is. Yeah.
So this was actually a really fun trip. This guy is from Iowa. This was a 47.5, really just, or no, 3/4 maybe, but beautiful fish. His biggest actually to that date. I'm not sure if he caught another since then, but so he actually was figure 8ing, and he would do like one figure 8, and then actually I would see directly underneath the boat like 3 times throughout that day where we would drive right over top of a fish. And his name is Nick. And I told him, I said, Nick, I said, just kind of deal with me here, but I want you to do 2 full figure 8s every single time.
This way.
You're having deep follows and you're not seeing them, but I'm seeing them on my electronics after we just basically drive over them. So do me a favor and just figure 8, 2-3 times, whatever it is. And also when he would come to the boat, he would figure 8 outside in, and his first turn was headed towards the boat. And I told him, you need to go inside out to get that fish to hang on the outside corner versus being to your boat every single cast, being that's when that fish is going to eat. So he started doing that, and this fish came out of nowhere, blind figure 8, just smoked him at the boat on it's a Hunzi tail, bucktail, which are just incredible if you guys have never heard of them or thrown them. But it's just an awesome occurrence here. But I think that him doing the extra figure 8, blind figure 8, even though it takes a little extra time, that was crucial to him putting that fish in the net.
Absolutely. Did he say inside out, Brent?
He went backwards. Outside turns away from the boat every time.
Yes.
That's when I do seminars, and that's one thing I harp on. And I'll actually say it to the people like 7 or 8 times. And I say, you probably heard me say this 5, 6, 7, 8 times, because I want you to remember when you're out in the body, out fishing this summer, you're going to remember this because I said it so many times. So outside turns away from the boat.
Yep. Absolutely. Change your levels in your figure 8 coming into it, drop it down, and then that outside turn should be up and fire them up.
If you're doing inside turns, you're going to lose a lot of fish.
Absolutely.
And you got nowhere to set the hook.
Yeah, you get stuck pretty quick.
Yeah. You don't have going outwards. It's all inwards.
Do 3 or 4 turns at the side of the boat. It's interesting. You observed that the fish were there, but he couldn't see them. We virtual follows where the guide sees the fish, but the guest doesn't, and it's there. And we call the guest. There's the fish there. Like we call when the fish is coming. Is the fish there? Do you see it? No. Keep doing it. Keep turning. Flashed again. Do you see it? No. Never mind. Keep going. Keep going. You see now? Flashed again. Do you see it? No.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Keep going. And we've done that literally for 90 seconds with somebody 12 times, where a fish flashed on the bait, but it's in dirty water or compromised visibility. And if you don't have the electronics, if you're not watching that, if you don't have a guide who's paying attention and coaching you and telling you need to do more circles, you're not in the game. And so, when I write a musky book someday, if that ever happens, it's going to be called The Third Circle. And that's because in dirty water at night, when fish are inactive, 1 circle isn't it. You need to give that fish lots of time to get on that bait, to get excited about it. So 3rd circle, good point. Got any questions on that one, Noah?
Not necessarily on specifically that one, but this one has to do with lure color and lure choice. Logic of bait selection based on water clarity and temperature. When to focus on variables in vibration, sound, colors, etc. Who wants to answer?
As long as it's got some, as long as it has, as long as it has a bit of orange in it, no matter what the conditions. But
so they've heard us answer this one a few times. So what do you got? What do you got, Taylor?
I honestly am not a big like color guy. I go a lot of natural times. I match forage based, that sort of thing. There's not a lake in anywhere I've ever fished that you cannot catch them on white or black or gold. So those are kind of my go-tos. And then obviously your variations of perch or shad or sucker or whatever it may be, Cisco's, whatever it may be for that body of water. And that temp, like say if you're fishing November and you're fishing the Cisco spawn, you're not going to throw perch bait. You're going to throw Cisco color bait, right? Things like that. As far as, what does he say here? Sounds and rattles and things of that sort. I actually think that rattles seem to work better in your dark stained body water, same as like a jointed bait versus a straight bait, something like that where it's clacking off of itself. Just if you want to use their ladder line more so than their eyesight, in the clear water like you would, that's kind of what I'm going off of. And then I've also found that your boat speed and your boat control matter more so on the dark stained bodies of water than they do on the clear bodies of water. Whereas your casts on clear bodies of water can be every 20 feet. Your casts, apart, where those fish will actually move further for a bait. On the dark stained water, you got to drop it on their head a lot of times. So your casts are every, 10 feet or so. You're cutting that basically in half. And your boat speed moving down a structure will be slower on your dark stained body water versus your clear body of water. You can move at a mile an hour versus your 0.5, 0.7 on a dark stain.
All really good points. You guys have anything you wanted to add?
About colors right here. This very dirty stained water. This is the color I'm throwing. Something bright, something that you can see. Clear water, something more. I mean, this bait's pretty chewed up, but it's a natural color. That being said, a muskie doesn't have to see the bait to be able to eat the bait. You can catch them at night in the pitch black. Doesn't matter whether it's a black bait or a white bait. They can catch it because they have a lateral line and they can feel vibrations and movements in the water. So, I mean, maybe it's more of a personal thing, like by the fisherman. Oh, bright colors, but that's what I usually do. If it is dirty water, I go with something brighter, something that they can catch an eye on, and then obviously something more natural if we have really clear water. Look more like a real bait fish. So yeah.
All right.
That's my input on it.
All right. Let's throw a video up.
All right. Give me a second here. All right.
Comment on your last video just before this goes up. I loved how your Iowa guest had his drag clamped right down and that fish just went bananas the side of the boat and stayed on for you. Never got more than 3 feet of line off the end of the rod.
Yeah, he handled that one.
Rodeo, 8 seconds.
All right.
So this is Mag Dog, and it's actually in October, but it's very shallow water. We're casting up onto like a 3-foot kind of bar here, like rock gravel bar. And I'm snapping this pretty hard, getting that Mag Dog to walk and roll and move and all the things. And this fish absolutely inhaled.
Big fish too.
But yeah, she was a good one. She was angry.
Come right to you, Gus.
This was with my buddy Gus Manty. He's got a Suds Fishing Guide service, and then Musky's on Tap podcast. But this was in the boat with him. We both had a day off, and we both went and chased a big bite. So
that's another rodeo fish. 8 seconds. I was timing it. 8 seconds in the net.
Yeah, they don't last too long. We fish for the bite, not the fight.
Yeah.
I like it. Hey, what kind of line do you have on there? I noticed it's blue.
Yeah, that's the Fins XS big game. I like the blue line, and I like the white line. I basically don't care which it is. I don't think color line really matters. But the blue line I always put on my rubber rods is a 100-pound test. That's an easy way to tell what the difference is. And then the white line, I do the 80-pound. But a lot of times with like the white, that's like my glider rods, my Suick rods, your kind of finesse stuff. So you can actually see what your bait is doing just with the line and how that's, you know, you're visibly watching the line bounce back and forth, and you can see that bait walk or go side to side or slack line or whatever it is. So that like white bright line is very visible to you as an angler to be able to see what your bait's doing without visually seeing the bait itself.
Yeah, personally, I don't think the fish really keying on that line at all.
No.
They're coming in to crush that bait, and I don't think the line color is going to affect your bite at all.
Yeah, I mean, we got big steel leaders and 7/0 treble hooks. You know, I don't
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit another video. We're on a roll.
This is actually filming with Brian Scaife of Angling Anarchy. We had an awesome day, awesome morning. This was like a 43 incher or whatever it was. Just I could not keep this Hunzi tail away from this fish. As fast as I could move the bait, she was right on it. So speed is a big thing in your figure eights and setting those fish up to eat. And I tried getting through the straight stretch because I don't want to set the hook in that spot. But there was no stopping that fish. So that was kind of.
They're fired up, man.
Yeah, they were absolutely wild this day. Brian caught a 45 and a half, I think, this day, and it just flew right out of the water and ate the bait, like T-boned it. Whole head and everything came out of the water on the bite. And then this one was right after that, and then I lost probably a 51, 52, which is a giant fish for our area that same day. So that was a good one.
Yeah.
Midday while the sun shines.
I like how you're talking about speed on your figure eights. I always try to tell my guests this. It's hard when they're first time musky fishermen and have never seen a muskie before, but I try to tell them, you got to read the mood of your fish.
Mm-hmm.
If it's coming in hot like that fish, it's chasing it really hot, speed it up. Get that, because that's what that fish is going after, right? It's going after the speed. But if it's a lazy follow, really slow down your turns, change things up to try to get that fish from in a neutral standpoint to try to get it active and get it to bite. So, So yeah.
Yep. And I will tell you that you're never going to be perfect on a figure eight, but time on the water and more practice on figure eight fish, you will see what their tendencies are based on how those fish are reacting to a specific lure. I would tell anybody that's a beginner, if you want to get better at figure eights, go to an action body of water. You don't have to go and chase a 50 incher every single time you go out. When I was younger, that's what I did. I went to action water to get practice and get better at these things and kind of hone the craft, you know? So there's nothing wrong with going and catching a 36 inch muskie, you know, I mean, go and have fun and have some success and get some confidence in the things that you want to do on the water before you go chasing after giants, you know?
That's really, really good advice for people who are new. Because if you're out chasing giants, you can go 2 or 3 days with a couple of chances. You know, 3 or 4. You don't get to practice that figure eight at all when you're new. What you want is over and over. Train your eyes, train your motion, so that you don't react. You don't get spooked. You don't get scared of that fish coming in. That exactly. It's just a natural reaction. So it absolutely does require practice. That's some good advice going to a numbers fishery instead of going out and having that memory of that big one went away because you weren't ready.
Yeah, everybody wants to catch a big fish, but in order to learn about the fish, you got to see the fish, right?
Yeah, got to practice. Got to practice it. All right.
Yeah. I think you have to write a book. Everyone wants you to write a book. I think you'll have some good sales. I would buy John's book in a heartbeat.
Okay.
Get on it.
Think about it. I got 3 of them.
Take some days off the water and stay at home and write.
Too busy fishing to write at this point. But yeah, it's on the list of things to do. So we'll see. Maybe someday.
I got another video.
What do you got?
Oh, this is actually opening weekend of our season last year. This was a 48 incher. Came boat side. It actually swung and missed. This is a hammer jerk, it's called. This is a 1-of-1 kind of dive and rise, glide / crankbait, like hybrid bait that's just incredible. But my buddy out of Eagle River makes this and does not make a lot of them, but this has action like you would not believe. This fish nipped at the bait as it was on the cast, and she came back in, went around and ate oval really a couple of times. Which I will say I do ovals a lot of the times on bigger fish because they cannot turn as fast. So that's something to take away from this. But yeah, she came up and just committed suicide on it both sides. And awesome experience there.
And when you're working a jerkbait, say you got a Suick and you got a fish coming in, and you're going to a figure eight. Do you keep it jerking it in the figure eight, or do you go to smooth with it in the figure eight?
So kind of my take on that is that if that fish wanted to eat that jerkbait, I mean, that's the trigger, right? Is the rip and stops and that time and that bait rising. That's the trigger with that lure. So if that fish did not eat it on that cast, I don't want to do the same thing on the figure eight. So generally, I will rip it through and then just quick crank it around and get it around the first turn of the eight, and then either hang it there, or actually something that I can do with Suicks or really any heavy dive and rise, say a 10-inch Suick and up, or 12-inch works really well. But actually, like, take your thumb bar on your reel and disengage your reel on that outside turn, and you can actually shoot that bait outside and get it further away from the boat and actually like straight out. And a lot of times they just come up and clobber that thing when you do that. But you got to make sure then that you have your thumb back on that spool or your reel's engaged, or you're gonna have a mess.
Right.
No, that's a really deadly tactic. And then also, if you shoot it out there and it's kind of rising up really slow, if you do tighten your reel and you actually turn that Suick, I don't know if you can see my hand, but you turn that Suick like it's coming up, and then you pull on it. You just keep tension and slowly turn the Suick to the side and change that. Basically show the face or the side of the lure to the fish. A lot of times they clobber it right on that pause like that. So that's something with a dive and rise or heavy dive and rise do that's kind of tricky. But
not only people need to grow, especially if you're new to musky fishing, grow and practice your figure eight with your outside turns away from the boat.
Yeah,
that's something you can also practice stuff like that, just so that when you do get that fish coming in, you're prepared for it.
Yep. And the only reason why I know like little tricks like that is because I tried it and it worked. It's you gotta be able to risk it for the biscuit, and sometimes it fails, and sometimes you get a light bulb and you got something that you can use on fish that are pressured or just are hard to get to go. So
yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to actually, I made a little bit of a note about that. I'm gonna be working on that this year.
Yeah, try it out. I think you're gonna like it.
Yeah.
All right. And up next we have
we have a question. If you want to answer a question.
Oh, we do, because it's our interactive program.
Yes. For a new musky fisherman, what is the best advice you can give him about casting, as in technique, colors, shallow or deep?
I'm going to say when you're casting, don't use your shoulders too much. I talk quite a bit about bringing your rod back, letting your rod load up, and using that energy in the rod for throwing your cast. You could duct tape my arms to my body here, and I can fire it out just as far as cast. When you start bringing your arms up and making big power casts like that, when you first start musky fish in particular, you're going to wear yourself out. And if you have any shoulder problems, you're really going to notice it. But you're going to be a lot more tired at the end of the day. And you're not going to be as, if you're tired physically, you're going to be more tired mentally, especially if you get a big fish coming in later in the day.
Yeah. So
letting your rod do a lot of that work when you're firing out those casts will really help.
Yeah. I'll jump on to what you said, Brent. One thing I try to tell my guests too when they're in the boat with me, I always say, don't kill yourself. I'm putting the boat in the right spot. You don't have to cast as far as you possibly can every single time.
Yes, you do.
You do not.
Yes, you do.
Know where the fish are sitting. I'm putting the boat in the right spot, so you don't have to kill yourself every single time. And when you're fishing on the water for that long, you definitely can't you can't be killing yourself with that. With long casts all day, you're not going to hold up if you're a new musky angler.
Or even if you're a seasoned musky angler, you know what? You got to conserve your energy for those long days. But
Exactly.
as far as colors go, it's really going to depend quite a bit depending on your forage. In our quartz lakes here, for example, we have a lot of perch in there. We have walleye and smallmouth. I love a bait that has a little bit of orange on it. You know, if you're fishing clearer water where there's Cisco's and stuff like that, more natural baits like your whites and your purples. Just kind of a very basic thing there.
Taylor, what do you want to tell him? What do you want to tell Timmy?
You guys kind of touched on color and casting technique. I would say, because he's talking shallow or deep or whatever, I'll touch on that. I would say that the biggest mistake that I do see other anglers making is being too shallow for the majority of the year when they are casting. Say if you saw a fish in early June, that fish is not going to be in the same location in August as it was in early June. Those fish in that time frame are just coming out of their spawning bays. They're setting up on the first structure on the outside of those bays. Whereas in July, August, whatever, those fish have moved out. The weed line has moved out. Those fish are off the break. Don't be scared to get out deep and cast, to the structure or even a cast length off the structure. I think a lot of times people are more visual in what they're trying to do as far as shorelines, islands, visible weeds, things like that. I would just say don't be afraid to go out a little bit extra and make that extra cast and give that fish an opportunity to actually eat your lure before coming into the boat and then shying off real quick because you are on top of that fish versus being out and yeah.
All right.
All right.
Well, I'll give Timmy a little bit of advice then. My advice for Timmy would be to hire Taylor, because the techniques and especially the techniques that you learn for casting, keeping your back straight, using your rod, setting up your reel, the right way to deal with the weight of the lures that you're using, how to figure eight. All of these are very technical, and what you learn in the beginning is the way you're going to probably carry through that technique for the remainder of your life. So have somebody who understands efficiency, understands getting tired late in the day, understands physics, and can show you how to stand and how to set up and how to work it. And so learn your core, learn your basics well, and then on to advanced tactics and such. But your basic functionality as a musky fisherman. Get somebody who knows how to teach you, like Taylor, or go out with your most experienced buddies. Don't fish with one. Fish with as many different guys as you can on different people on different bodies of water. Everybody's got something to teach you.
It's another thing if you're just getting into musky fishing. I'm not sure where you're from, Timmy, but we have Muskies Canada chapters here. We have Muskies Inc. I know Wisconsin has a lot of other musky clubs. Getting involved with your local musky club is a great way to learn stuff as well. You get monthly seminars and whole wealth of knowledge of guys that will share something with you.
All the freaks are in your local musky club. Go join them. You won't go wrong. They're just like you.
Yep.
It's nice to know there's others just as afflicted as we are.
Exactly. All right. One more video.
One more video.
It's the last one we got. It's my favorite. It's a topwater video.
Yeah, this is a Lake X Cannonball Junior. This is a lake. It's very low density. It's got big fish in it. That's what we were after this day. This was something 47, 48 incher, which is, our upper echelon of fish up here. And the reason for throwing that big topwater, one, it was August and we had a cold front. And what that does, cold fronts in the summertime will push those fish up shallow onto that shallow structure, seeking the warmth. And the only way to really get through all those shallow, sloppy weeds and whatnot is topwater or say big blades like a double 10. The big blades will actually push the weeds out of the way, the water just from those blades, so you won't get hung up as much, and you can ride through that and then drop them. So that was kind of combo here. We had two baits that work well with each other. The big lake, top water. The reason for the bigger top water being a Cannonball Junior was we had about 20-mile-an-hour winds this day, and you want to be noticed. You want to have a big profile and a loud sound. Versus a smaller top water, those fish probably wouldn't notice that lure or stick out as much.
He was barely hooked anymore.
That's a nice looking fish. You hit on a couple of things there. A lot of people think top waters are for calm water and calm conditions. And you just blew that away. Explain that. Explain about using your top water in the big waves.
I absolutely love top water in ripply or wave windy conditions. You just have to upsize your profile. I know like the Suick Nightwalker, that's one that I like in a flat calm scenario because the water actually will like go over the top of that lure, whereas like these bigger Lake X, really buoyant baits, they'll ride on top of those waves and create a lot of sound, that big profile for those fish to see. And I've actually noticed that fish in choppier, windy conditions explode way harder on topwater lures in those conditions versus the flat calm where they just come up and nip the back hook kind of thing. So more aggressive eats are always in those windy conditions. And I think it's because they cannot really 100% tell what that is on the surface. And it's dynamite. And I see it all the time where last light, every single boat on the water is throwing a prop style topwater, and that's just not it for me. I mean, it's great seeing them come in and waking on the bait and all that, but my most explosive eats on top have been in windy or rough conditions.
Yeah, I'll throw a shout out to Chad Kane. Used to see him at a bunch of the shows that I went to stateside, and I remember he was one of the first guys I met who was really big on top waters in huge waves, 3 and 4 foot waves. I remember he had Charles Weiss do a custom painting for him of a fish coming through a big wave to eat a top water bait. That was his thing. So yeah, top water, not just for calm. Big fish, big waves. Well done.
I was gonna say, yeah, that is, to me, that is still considered pretty calm water.
Yeah.
I give like to clients 2, 3, even almost 4 foot waves on windy days. We get really big water on the Ottawa. I am not shy to throw a top water in any condition whatsoever. And if it's, it's coming up as the waves are rolling, it's breaking out of the surface and then it kind of goes into the wave, I'm perfectly fine with that. Clients usually don't have too much confidence in it until they get bit though. I'm like, just trust me. Keep throwing it.
You better make it happen if you're going to have that guy throw the big bait in big waves.
Yeah,
that'll work. So
no, yeah, but there's no such thing as too choppy for top water, in my opinion.
All right. Wow. So it seems like we had the videos go to about the point where we're supposed to think about ending the show. We shoot for an hour. We usually end up with closer to an hour and a half. So do you have a couple of good last questions, maybe, Noah?
I have Timmy responded back, the one we answered about his for new musky anglers, but he was wondering, how do you find a local musky club? He's from Iowa, by the way. So he would be Muskies Inc., right?
Yep, just search local Muskies Inc. chapter online, and you'll find them on Facebook or whatever. I know that there is a chapter in Iowa. I'm not sure exactly what the name of it is, but there is one there, and you'll find a lot of like-minded individuals that are willing to help you out and give you tips and tricks and all the things, whether it's handling, casting, figure eights, technique, whatever it is. A lot of those guys are very willing to share what they've learned with new people coming into the sport.
Yeah, keyword, they're willing. You get a lot of enthusiastic people who are enthusiastic to mentor you, to teach you to take care of the fish. It's in every musky angler's best interest that everybody learns to take care of those fish, to learn to respect them, to learn to put them back.
Yeah,
absolutely. Cool.
I got one more question here as well, if we want to answer it.
Sure.
Thomas Rendell says, how does your pattern change from early season to fall? are you focusing more on structure like depth, breaks, or chasing suspended fish? Some of you mentioned them chasing bait fish earlier.
Taylor, you're the guest. What do you got?
So I will say that's all scenario dependent. It depends on your water temp is the biggest thing to look for. Not so much time of year, but it is the water temp that matters. Springtime, you always will have your spawn, coming in, and then those fish will, gradually move out. The bigger females will move out sooner, and then your males will be left behind in the shallows and in the weeds. Those big females will go out to open water or off the breaks to kind of recuperate and recover, and then they do make their way back as the year goes on. I will say like cold front scenarios in the spring are different than in the fall and summer. Cold front scenarios in the spring, you're actually looking at fish to go out deeper and move out to wood or, something like that, cribs, things like that, that are holding the heat. And then the water temperature is not changing as much in the deeper water, whereas it is getting colder in the shallows. So those fish will slide down with that water temp. And then summertime, if you have a cold front in the summer, that will push fish up shallow and onto structures seeking the heat and the warmth. Whereas same as in the fall, that first cold front will always push those fish out. But if you have September, just because it's September doesn't mean that all fish are shallow. Those fish will push up shallow in that cold front or that first cold front of the season. And then if you have like an Indian summer where you get 85 degrees for 4 days, a lot of those fish will push back off the break and be off, out on the mud, hanging out and things like that. Or June time frame, you always have, your bug hatches are happening in our area around like that 10th of June to like the 20th of June. So find your biggest concentration of bug hatches. You'll find your bait, you'll find your muskies. So it's all scenario and day to day, and things can change on the water, within a week's time very quickly. So just following the water temps and following part of the seasonal movements is key, but also realizing that just because somebody said that muskies are supposed to be here during this time doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to happen.
Good answer. Good answer. It's a pretty broad-based question that you asked us, Thomas, because we could do a whole show on the post-spawn bite. We could do another whole show on the summer bite, and then the transition bite in September after you've had the first cold nights of the year, starting in late August. Those would be whole shows. So Taylor, you made that pretty succinct and easy line to follow. Well done.
I'd say one of my main things too is bait choice. Like from the start of the season into summer, I'm fishing baits that are faster, and when I get into the fall, I'm going bigger and I'm going much slower. I like fishing shallow year round. I catch fish in 3 to 5 feet of water all the way into November, and from obviously the start of the season, I spend a lot of time there. In the fall, I fish deeper a lot more than I would in the spring and summer, but I still fish shallow in the fall. So the main change is my baits I'm using, throwing more Suicks in the fall, stuff that pauses. The water temperatures are lower. The fish are moving slower. They don't want to move as much. So something that'll hang in their face is a great bait to trigger a bite. So yeah, that's my little comment on that.
All right. Gentlemen, I think we made a show.
I think we did. I think we did pretty good.
I think we did all right. Taylor, pleasure having you on the show. I feel much less intimidated by a guide who's got a guarantee at this point. So it's good we got to spend all this time talking. I think that worked out really well. You really know your game. That's why you've got the media following that you have done, and that's why you can catch 44 fish and 48, or have success on 44 out of 48 charters at the beginning. So a good student and a good guide, you can tell. A pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The sun must be going down to get your shades off.
Yeah, it's getting dark now.
All right. And again, a guy who has to travel to get internet. You are living in the right place to chase muskies, my friend. Well done. On behalf of the Suick Seminar crew, Noah Oliveira Hill, Brent Bochek, and myself, John Anderson. Thanks, Taylor, for being here. We'll see you all June 1st for episode number 5 in the Suick Seminar Series 2026. Thanks a lot. Take care.
you.
Tight lines.
Hey, everybody.